Life is full of people who leave an impression, some positive, some painful. And then there are those who shape your life in ways you never imagined, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. Narcissists. These are individuals who demand attention, thrive on control, and often leave chaos in their wake. But while dealing with them can feel overwhelming, there are vital lessons that can empower you to protect yourself, grow stronger, and regain your sense of self. Today, I want to share with you 5 life lessons you can't ignore about narcissists. Lessons that could transform how you approach relationships and protect your emotional well-being. One of the most exhausting experiences in life is trying to earn the approval of someone who will never truly be satisfied. Narcissists thrive on admiration, they feed on it, they seem to radiate confidence and charm. But beneath that surface lies a constant void, a hunger that cannot be filled. And here's the catch. No matter how much you give, how much you try to impress them, it's never enough. You could bend over backward, you could dedicate years of your life to pleasing them, yet they will always find a way to criticize, dismiss, or belittle you. It's not because you aren't capable or worthy, it's because their approval is never about you. It is about them. Consider the story of a woman I know. She spent a lifetime trying to earn her father's approval. She excelled in school, became the top student in her class, earned multiple accolades, and yet every achievement was met with a shrug, a dismissive comment, or worse, a pointed comparison to someone else. She began to doubt herself, questioning whether she was ever good enough. Imagine the exhaustion of living every day in that state of uncertainty where your successes are minimized and your efforts are invisible. For her, life became a performance, a constant quest for validation that would never arrive. This is the cruel paradox of narcissistic relationships. They make you feel like your value is conditional on their opinion, and you start believing it. You begin to define your worth through their eyes, and gradually you lose touch with your own sense of self. You start asking yourself questions like, am I too much? Am I not enough? What can I do to make them happy? And the harder you try, the more elusive their approval becomes. The more you bend, the more they stretch the goalposts. Here's what's liberating when you finally grasp it. Their dissatisfaction is not about you. It is about their own emptiness, their own unmet needs, their inability to feel whole without constantly drawing from others. Their constant criticism, their dismissive attitude, their lack of acknowledgement. It's a mirror reflecting their own inner turmoil, not a measure of your value. And when you truly understand this, a remarkable shift happens. You stop chasing what cannot be given, and you start reclaiming your energy, your focus, and your life. It's not easy at first. The habit of seeking approval runs deep. We are wired to want validation, to crave acceptance, especially from people we care about. But narcissists distort this need. They exploit it. And the moment you realize you are chasing an empty goal, you are free to redirect your energy. Imagine redirecting all that effort you spent trying to please someone else into building yourself, your skills, your passions, your dreams. Imagine finally measuring your worth through your own eyes, not theirs. This is where true freedom begins. Take a real-life example from the corporate world. There's a manager who constantly undermines employees. No matter how much they achieve, they are never recognized. Instead, their contributions are minimized or credited to someone else. Many employees start to feel incompetent, even though objectively their performance is outstanding. Over time, some burn out, resign, or internalize a sense of inadequacy that isn't theirs to carry. But those who understand the dynamic, that the manager's dissatisfaction is a reflection of their own insecurities rather than the employee's shortcomings, can navigate the situation differently. They focus on their growth, their accomplishments, and their own sense of pride. Their validation comes from within, not from the unstable mirror of someone else's approval. It's also crucial to remember that this lesson applies in every sphere of life: family, work, friendships, or romantic relationships. Narcissists can appear in many forms. They can be the parent who never seems satisfied, the partner who criticizes under the guise of helping, or the friend who takes without giving. And in every case, the pattern is the same. Their approval is fleeting, unpredictable, and ultimately unattainable. Trying to earn it is like pouring water into a sieve. It disappears before it can nourish you. The real power lies in turning your gaze inward, cultivating your own self-respect and understanding that your worth is independent of their judgment. You might wonder, how do I stop seeking their approval? How do I let go of this exhausting need? It begins with awareness. Notice when you are modifying your behavior to gain their favor. Notice the times you silence your own voice or compromise your values to avoid their disapproval. Then consciously choose to honor yourself instead. Start small, set boundaries, speak your truth, celebrate your achievements, even if they are ignored by them. Over time, you will feel a sense of strength and peace you never thought possible. You will realize that your value is inherent, not something to be earned. And here's the beauty of this lesson. Once you stop chasing their approval, the dynamic changes. Narcissists may still criticize, they may still dismiss you, but it no longer controls your emotions. You are no longer caught in their gravitational pull. You are free to live for yourself, to pursue the people, experiences, and goals that genuinely fulfill you. The energy you once spent trying to fix their opinion can now be invested in your dreams, your growth, and your happiness. You are no longer at the mercy of someone who cannot see your value. You are your own source of validation. So remember this, the quest to earn a narcissist's approval is endless and futile. Their approval is a moving target designed to keep you tethered to their need for control. But your freedom, your peace, and your sense of worth are non-negotiable. They are yours to claim. Stop trying to fix them with your efforts. Stop tying your self-esteem to someone incapable of seeing your brilliance. Focus instead on your own life, your own values, and your own happiness. You will discover that the moment you stop seeking approval is the moment you begin to truly thrive. One of the most insidious aspects of dealing with a narcissist is the way they manipulate reality with their words. Their words can wound deeply, not because they have any objective truth, but because we allow them to shape our perception of ourselves. Narcissists are masters of gaslighting, passive aggression, and subtle attacks that make you question your own memory, judgment, and even your sanity. You start doubting yourself, replaying interactions over and over, trying to figure out what you did wrong or what you could have said differently. The psychological weight of this constant self-questioning is exhausting, and many people end up feeling trapped, confused, and powerless. Take the example of Mark, a young professional who started working under a manager who fit this pattern perfectly. At first, Mark thought he was just being corrected, maybe learning to grow in his role. But soon, every comment turned into a critique, every suggestion was met with disdain, and he began to doubt his abilities. He would leave meetings replaying every word, analyzing tone, second-guessing every decision. Objectively, he was excelling in his job, delivering excellent results, receiving praise from colleagues, but the manager's words overshadowed everything. Slowly, Mark started believing he was incompetent, not realizing that the problem was not his performance. It was the distortion imposed by the narcissist. This is the critical lesson. Words are only powerful if you let them be. They have no intrinsic ability to define your worth unless you give them that power. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions. They want you to feel small, insecure, or dependent because it feeds their sense of control. When you begin to understand this, you can start reclaiming your reality. You start separating the narrative they are trying to impose from your objective truth. Their criticism, their manipulation, their subtle jabs, they are not facts. They are reflections of insecurity, envy, or a deep, unacknowledged emptiness within them. One way to safeguard yourself is to create a buffer between their words and your self-perception. This could be journaling your thoughts, recording achievements, or seeking validation from objective sources rather than the narcissist. If someone constantly tells you that your work is not good enough, compare it to the measurable outcomes you've produced. If someone belittles your emotions, reflect on the situations objectively and consider the perspective of people who genuinely care about you. The goal is to create a mental separation between their distorted reality and your own truth. A personal story illustrates this vividly. There was a woman named Priya who had a narcissistic sibling. Her sibling constantly made backhanded comments about her career, her lifestyle, even the way she dressed. At first, Priya internalized everything, feeling hurt, angry, and insecure. But over time, she realized that these attacks were not about her. They were about her sibling's need to feel superior, to control, and to dominate conversations. Once she made this mental shift, she stopped reacting emotionally to the jabs. She still encountered the same words, the same criticisms, but they no longer dictated her mood, her confidence, or her decisions. The moment she detached her self-worth from the narcissist's words, she felt a profound sense of liberation. Data supports this pattern. Psychological research shows that individuals who experience repeated gaslighting or manipulation often exhibit higher levels of anxiety, depression, and self-doubt. But studies also show that those who consciously separate themselves from the manipulator's narrative, acknowledging their accomplishments, seeking support, and reinforcing their own values, are significantly more resilient. A lesson here is clear: you can protect your mind, your emotions, and your sense of self by refusing to internalize their distorted words. This principle extends beyond workplaces or family situations. Romantic relationships, friendships, and even social interactions can be arenas where narcissistic words create invisible wounds. The pattern is always the same: subtle criticism, manipulation, and invalidation designed to create doubt and dependency. But it doesn't have to define your reality. You have the power to witness their words without absorbing them, to hear without believing, and to recognize without internalizing. Imagine the difference in your life if every critical comment, every dismissive remark, every subtle attack no longer controlled your emotions. You would feel lighter, freer, and more confident. You would stop questioning yourself and start trusting your instincts. You would stop replaying conversations endlessly and instead focus on creating, achieving, and living your life on your terms. Understanding this doesn't make the narcissist disappear. They will still speak, still manipulate, still try to provoke emotional reactions, but their words no longer have dominion over you. You reclaim your mind, your peace, and your power. And that shift, once experienced, fundamentally changes your approach to relationships, work, and life. The power of their words diminishes not because they have changed, but because your perception has. You stop being a victim of their narrative and start becoming the author of your own reality. The moment you internalize this lesson is transformative. You begin to understand that no one else, no parent, partner, friend, or boss can define your value unless you allow it. Their words might sting temporarily, but they cannot infect your sense of self. This realization becomes a shield, a tool, and a strategy for life. Every time a narcissist speaks, you have a choice. Let their words dictate your emotional state, or observe them, acknowledge them, and continue walking your path with clarity and confidence. And that choice, simple as it seems, is revolutionary. It liberates you from the subtle chains of manipulation and emotional control. It allows you to navigate the world with certainty, self-respect, and peace of mind. You begin to see clearly that their words are not weapons against you, they are mirrors of their own unresolved insecurities. And the more you embrace this truth, the stronger, calmer, and more unshakable you become. One of the hardest lessons you learn when dealing with narcissists is the necessity of boundaries, and I don't just mean casual limits. You need boundaries that are unshakable, non-negotiable, and fiercely protective of your energy. Narcissists don't respect personal space, time, or emotional limits unless you enforce them. They will test your patience, push your buttons, and constantly try to draw you back into their drama. And if you don't have boundaries, you will be pulled in over and over again, drained, frustrated, and increasingly resentful. Think about what happens in many families. There's a parent, sibling, or relative who constantly takes your time, your energy, your attention without consideration for your feelings. They might demand favors at the last minute, criticize your choices, or manipulate situations to suit their own needs. And if you haven't established firm boundaries, you may end up complying, apologizing, and sacrificing your own needs just to keep the peace. Over time, you begin to feel invisible, exhausted, and trapped. You might even start to think that the problem is you for being too sensitive or too demanding. But the reality is simple. A narcissist's pattern of exploitation is predictable, and boundaries are your armor. Let me share a story. There was a woman named Lisa who was in a relationship with a narcissistic partner. In the beginning, she tried to please him in every way, agreeing with all his opinions, managing his emotions, constantly checking in on his needs, and sacrificing her own desires to avoid conflict. Over time, she felt like she had lost herself completely. She couldn't make a simple decision without fearing his reaction, and she lived in constant tension, always anticipating his disapproval. One day, she decided she had to reclaim her life. She started small, saying no when she couldn't meet unreasonable demands, speaking up about her feelings, and protecting her personal time. At first, it was uncomfortable. There were arguments, guilt trips, and even manipulation to try to break her resolve. But the more she held firm, the more she realized something extraordinary. She could exist independently, and her peace mattered more than his control. Slowly, she rebuilt her sense of self, her confidence, and her energy. Boundaries are not about cruelty, they are about self-respect. They are about protecting the very core of your being from emotional depletion. Without them, you are like a dam without walls, letting the narcissist's manipulation, demands, and drama flow in unchecked. With them, you regain control. You dictate how much access someone has to your life, your time, and your emotions. You start defining the rules, and the narcissist can no longer dictate your mood, choices, or sense of worth. This applies in the workplace as well. Many professionals deal with narcissistic colleagues or bosses who constantly demand attention and compliance. Without boundaries, you might take on excessive work, accept blame for mistakes you didn't make, or allow yourself to be publicly undermined. But when you establish clear limits, when you say no to unreasonable demands, communicate expectations clearly, and protect your personal time, you create a buffer that preserves your energy and your mental health. It's not easy, especially when guilt, fear, or manipulation comes into play, but it is necessary. Every act of self-protection reinforces your strength and self-respect. Boundaries are also an act of emotional clarity. When you enforce them, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop letting a narcissist's mood dictate your own. You no longer give away pieces of yourself to someone incapable of valuing them. You reclaim the time, focus, and energy that was once siphoned off by their endless demands. In essence, boundaries are the practice of loving yourself enough to prioritize your needs, desires, and peace over someone else's endless hunger. Consider the emotional impact of not having boundaries. People often describe feeling drained, used, or invisible around narcissists. These feelings aren't imaginary. They are signals from your mind and body telling you that your personal limits are being violated. Ignoring these signals only compounds stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. Enforcing boundaries is a form of self-care, a way to honor your limits before the narcissist forces you into exhaustion, resentment, or emotional collapse. The challenge is that narcissists often resist boundaries. They may escalate manipulation, guilt trips, or even aggression to try to break them. But the more consistent and unwavering you are, the more you communicate that your life, time, and energy are not negotiable. And over time, the narcissist may back off or, at the very least, fail to disrupt your inner peace. That is where true empowerment comes from. The ability to navigate interactions without losing yourself, without sacrificing your health, without compromising your dignity. Boundaries also teach others how to treat you. They are the blueprint for respect. When you demonstrate that you honor your own limits, people, narcissists and non-narcissists alike, begin to understand that you are not a source of endless giving, that your energy has value and that your life is yours to govern. This simple act of self-respect can ripple outward, transforming relationships, interactions, and even your own self-perception. The truth is, boundaries are not a one-time act, they are a lifestyle. You will need to reinforce them, adjust them, and sometimes defend them repeatedly. Each time you do, you grow stronger, more confident, and less reactive to the narcissist's attempts to control you. Every no you speak, every refusal to sacrifice your peace is a declaration. You are worthy of respect, you are in control of your life, and you will not be drained for the sake of someone else's insecurities. Learning to set and maintain boundaries is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself in the presence of a narcissist. It is the bridge between survival and liberation. It allows you to exist without fear, without compromise, and without constant emotional depletion. It teaches you that your peace, time, and energy are sacred, and that no one, no matter how charming, manipulative, or demanding, has the right to take them from you. When you embrace this lesson, you are no longer trapped in their cycle of control. You are free to pursue your passions, your goals, and your relationships with clarity, confidence, and strength. Boundaries transform not just your interactions with narcissists, they transform your relationship with yourself. They remind you that you matter, that your energy matters, and that your life is yours to live. One of the most painful realizations when dealing with narcissists is understanding that they cannot love you the way you hope or need. This is not about blaming them, and it's not about imagining that they will change. It's about seeing the truth of their limitations. Narcissists often confuse control, attention, and admiration with love. To them, love is transactional, conditional, and performance-based. It exists when you serve their needs, validate their ego, or make them feel superior. The moment you stop meeting those invisible conditions, the affection, warmth, or attention evaporates, and the heartbreak comes from expecting them to give what they are incapable of giving. Consider the story of Sarah, who was in a long-term relationship with a narcissistic partner. At first, he showered her with attention, compliments, and grand gestures. She believed she had found a partner who loved her fully, unconditionally. But over time, the pattern became clear. When she expressed needs, asked for support, or sought emotional intimacy, he withdrew, criticized, or dismissed her. Every effort she made to deepen the connection was met with resistance. Her attempts to receive love the way she understood it were met with confusion, frustration, and emotional scarcity. Over time, she realized that the love she longed for, the kind that nurtures, supports, and values her, was never going to come from him. It was not about her failures, it was about his inability to give it. This is a crucial lesson. Expecting a narcissist to meet your emotional needs is a path to constant disappointment. You may find yourself excusing their behavior, rationalizing their lack of empathy, or hoping that with time, effort, or patience, they will grow into the person you need. But the truth is that narcissists are rarely capable of genuine empathy or mutual emotional intimacy. Their love is conditional. It is given for the sake of validation, control, or self-interest, not for your well-being. Families often illustrate this dynamic vividly. There are parents who love their children, but their love comes with strings attached. Achievements are praised only if they reflect well on the parent. Affection is given only when the child conforms to expectations. Emotional support may be absent when it doesn't serve the parent's needs. Many children grow up internalizing this, believing that love is conditional, believing that they must earn it. But the adult lesson is clear. The limitation lies not with you, but with the other person's capacity to give love. Recognizing this truth is painful, but it is also liberating. It allows you to stop chasing an impossible ideal and start seeking relationships that truly nourish your soul. Another aspect of this lesson is understanding the difference between presence and attachment. Narcissists may seem present, they may show attention, give compliments, or appear caring, but their presence is conditional and fleeting. The moment circumstances shift, the attention evaporates. Many people feel used, abandoned, or emotionally hollowed by this pattern. But the key is to differentiate between genuine care and performance-based affection. Love from a narcissist is rarely about the other person. It is about their need to feel admired, in control, or superior. When you internalize this distinction, you stop taking it personally and start protecting your heart. This lesson also applies in friendships and professional relationships. A narcissistic friend may show up only when it benefits them, take credit for joint efforts, or demand loyalty without offering support in return. A narcissistic colleague may only praise you when it boosts their image and criticize when it doesn't. Recognizing that their care or attention is conditional helps you navigate these relationships without compromising your sense of self. You can engage with awareness rather than expectation, participate without hoping for emotional reciprocity, and preserve your energy for people who are genuinely capable of empathy and mutual respect. The liberation in understanding this is profound. When you stop expecting love from someone incapable of giving it, you stop chasing illusions. You redirect your emotional energy toward yourself and those who truly value you. You begin to cultivate relationships where affection, support, and understanding are mutual rather than scarce and transactional. You start to see that your emotional well-being is not dependent on someone else's limitations. It is something you create, protect, and nurture for yourself. It also changes how you view your past. Many people carry guilt, shame, or self-blame because they couldn't make the narcissist love them properly. They replay interactions, asking, did I try enough? Did I say the right things? Was it my fault? The truth is, their inability to love you fully is not your burden to fix. It is a reflection of their emotional structure, their unresolved wounds, and their patterns. Accepting this reality allows you to release guilt, forgive yourself, and finally grieve what was never possible. This lesson is not about bitterness, it is about clarity, it is about recognizing the truth and acting from it. When you internalize that a narcissist cannot meet your emotional needs, you stop sacrificing yourself in hope or desperation. You stop excusing their behavior, you stop compromising your happiness for someone who cannot reciprocate. And in that clarity, you discover freedom, resilience, and self-respect. The final insight is that once you stop expecting love from the narcissist, you can begin to truly love yourself. Self-love, self-validation, and self-respect are no longer optional. They become essential tools for survival and growth. You invest in yourself, cultivate your passions, and seek relationships that reflect the care and empathy you deserve. You start measuring love by its reciprocity, authenticity, and depth, rather than by someone else's empty performance. And that is where real emotional power resides. Not in hoping for someone else's love, but in knowing your own worth and protecting it fiercely. The final lesson, and perhaps the most transformative one, is this: your liberation begins the moment you stop taking a narcissist behavior personally. This is where true freedom emerges, not from changing them, not from convincing them to be different, but from reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. Narcissists thrive on reactions. They feed on anger, guilt, frustration, and confusion. The more you internalize their actions and words, the more power you give them. But the moment you realize that their behavior is about them, not about you, you take away their control. Think of John, who had a narcissistic sibling. For years, he tried to win over his siblings' approval. He modified his behavior, silenced his own opinions, and endlessly explained himself, believing that if he tried hard enough, the relationship could be normal, loving, and supportive. But every effort was met with dismissal, criticism, and emotional manipulation. John felt exhausted, angry, and small. Then one day he had a moment of clarity. He realized that no matter what he did, his siblings' reactions were not a reflection of his worth. They were a reflection of his siblings' insecurities, need for control, and inability to feel empathy. That realization didn't change his sibling, but it changed John. He stopped taking the attacks personally. He stopped letting them dictate his mood, his self-esteem, and his life. And in that shift, he discovered liberation. This is the essence of emotional detachment, not in the sense of indifference or coldness, but in the sense of clarity and protection. Narcissists will say hurtful things, make unreasonable demands, or manipulate reality, but their behavior is a mirror of their inner chaos, not a measure of your value. The moment you internalize this, you stop reacting with fear, guilt, or anger. You stop trying to explain yourself, justify your choices, or anticipate their responses. You reclaim your energy, your focus, and your emotional equilibrium. Many people struggle with this because instinctively we want to be liked, accepted, and valued. We naturally internalize criticism and seek approval. Narcissists exploit these instincts. They push buttons, provoke emotions, and create drama precisely because it works. But when you step back and observe objectively, you see the pattern. Their behavior is predictable, it is self-serving, and it is not a reflection of you. This insight is incredibly empowering. You begin to understand that their need to control, dominate, or criticize does not diminish your worth. It is simply a reflection of their unresolved inner struggles. Imagine the difference this awareness can make in your daily life. You no longer replay conversations in your mind, dissecting every word or tone. You no longer obsess over whether you did something wrong or whether you are somehow failing to meet their invisible standards. You stop feeling drained, anxious, or small around them. You are free to engage on your terms or disengage entirely without guilt or fear. Every interaction becomes a choice, not a trap. There is also a profound ripple effect when you stop taking narcissists personally. Your self-esteem improves, your relationships become healthier, and your emotional energy becomes available for people who truly deserve it. You begin to notice when you are in toxic patterns and can step away without hesitation. You start prioritizing your needs, desires, and emotional well-being, understanding that no one has the right to diminish your inner peace. Consider the workplace example. An employee dealing with a narcissistic boss may constantly feel criticized or undervalued. At first, the natural response is stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. But when the employee stops internalizing the boss's words and actions, a remarkable change occurs. The criticism becomes data rather than judgment. The boss's moods no longer dictate the employee's confidence. Decisions are made based on objective reality rather than emotional reaction. This detachment doesn't mean the employee ignores poor behavior. It means they protect themselves while navigating the situation strategically. This principle applies in personal relationships too. Narcissistic partners, friends, or family members will continue to provoke, manipulate, and sometimes hurt. But when you stop taking it personally, their behavior loses its emotional grip. You are no longer a puppet of their approval or disapproval. You no longer define your worth by their reactions. And in that liberation, you gain one of the most profound forms of power, self-possession. The truth is, you cannot change a narcissist. You cannot make them see your value, care for your needs, or behave with empathy if it is beyond their capacity. The only thing you can change is how you respond. And when you choose not to take their behavior personally, You reclaim the freedom to live your life authentically. You decide where your attention goes, who deserves your time, and how you allow others to affect your peace. The most powerful part of this lesson is that it works regardless of whether the narcissist continues to exist in your life. Whether they are a colleague, a family member, or a partner, this mindset protects you. It allows you to live fully without fear of emotional sabotage. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of their manipulation. You no longer question yourself. You no longer carry the weight of their dissatisfaction. Every time you choose not to internalize their behavior, you strengthen yourself. Every time you remind yourself that their words and actions are a reflection of them, not you, you reinforce your resilience. And every time you reclaim your emotional space, you take one more step toward freedom, clarity, and self-empowerment. Ultimately, stopping the habit of taking it personally is not just a defensive strategy, it is a life-changing shift in perspective. It transforms how you view relationships, conflict, and self-worth. It allows you to navigate the world with confidence, dignity, and peace. And most importantly, it teaches you a truth that every encounter with a narcissist can reveal. Your value is inherent, your energy is sacred, and your life belongs to you, not to someone else's manipulations or insecurities. Remember, dealing with narcissists will never be easy, but the power to protect yourself, reclaim your energy, and honor your worth lies entirely within you. Their words, their approval, and their behavior do not define you. What defines you is how you see yourself, how you set your boundaries, and how you choose to live your life. Start valuing your peace, trust your instincts, and surround yourself with people who truly lift you up. The moment you stop giving away your power is the moment you begin to truly live.